Can you hear me? There we go. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, May 7th of 2025, and this is the one and only Profitable Agent Plan call. Thanks for being here live. I appreciate it. And just so you know, let me start the screen so you can see exactly what I want to talk about first, which is where are we at in this whole thing, right? So bear with me. It's always a little bit of a juggling act with so many windows open. So let's get this going. Let's go over the topics and we'll talk about where we've been and where we are going. Okay. Sorry, I have to share it to two places. Okay, voila. You should be seeing 12 line items, and I'm going to talk about this course. So I've simplified it so I don't confuse you. The Profitable Agent Plan course is based on a strategic approach to running a successful agent business. And that doesn't mean agent at the brokerage level. It means at the micro individual level, the independent contractor agent. This is what this is for. And I am one of those inside my own brokerage too. So that is the angle that we come at this whole course with. Because I wish somebody early on had told me, don't just rush out with 2,000 business cards and a positive attitude and try to sell some houses. That's all tactical. And that's what we all want to do. I just want to sell a house. I know you do. And so do I. I want to sell a lot of houses. But what I realized that over time management, if you're new to the business, what do I do with the time that I have? If you're around the business for a long time, like a lot of my one-on-one coaching clients, what does that look like? Well, that means getting yourself organized at a micro level and being strategic. Stop just trying to sell a house. I can tell you right now, most top producers that come to me for coaching are a disaster. Most of them aren't thinking at all about being profitable per deal. They're thinking about transactions, thereby cutting their commissions, thereby doing far too many buyer deals versus seller deals in a mixed balance that doesn't work well. It's just a disaster from a profit standpoint. So if I can get them, like all of you, to think strategically first, everything just makes sense. So in this course, in the first week, I decided to do something a little bit differently. I took a picture of the model, the infographic that I have, and I'll show that later on. I'm not going to show it right now. But I made an infographic off of a book about small businesses written by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth, or The Entrepreneurial Myth. And he is the one that I would fully credit with pattern interrupting entrepreneurs to say what I just said. Stop just thinking you know how a business works because you know how to sell something. That's not a business model. And it largely is the reason why I had a couple nice conversations with new agents here today. And it's largely why I explained to them 72% of agents quit in the first year, which is what Danny was telling was a stat today that she found online. Okay, well, I know why. Because they think they can just do this tactically, and they go to a brokerage or a team or whatever, and everybody thinks you can just go out and sell a house with no strategy. That means you don't really have a plan, and that's just not smart. So really what we do here in this course is we give you a framework for strategic thinking. Now, yes, each week I will give you a little bit more technical and tactical because I know a lot of my Griffin agents are in here. A lot of my Realty Classroom agents come in here and or listen to the recordings. And the idea is, what does it look like to run a business A through Z? Right? If you really are looking at this in the context of a model, what does that look like? Well, the first week we talked about you have these visions. So in Michael Gerber's model, the entrepreneur, which you all are, meaning you want to own your own business as an agent, and I don't mean brokerage, I mean just as an agent, you're going to go somewhere and you come to a place like mine, like Griffin, and we're going to be two businesses doing business together. And so I'm going to challenge you right away to have a strategic business vision. But I'm also going to give you the cheat sheet for what that means. And that means that if you want to be smart about this business vision, you will answer the question that Gerber poses. How does the real estate agent business really work? And the answer is it works predicated on listings. If there are no listings, there is nothing inside the marketplace called the multiple listing service. So that's how it works. Well, that begs the question, well, then who gets the listings? And I'll make a very simple answer to that in the context of this course. The person who spends time learning a strategy to acquire listings, and if they want to be profitable, at and above the median price and above in the geography within which they really want to do business, not where they think they have to, but where they want to. That's how we start to create that strategic business for you. It doesn't mean you're not going to learn how to do buyers, of course. But as I always joke and I always quip, you start with the burgers, not the fries. What leads your business to profitability is the acquisition of listings at or above the median inside the geography within which you'd love to do business, period. And as a byproduct of acquiring good listings, you will acquire good buyers. I just put a $945,000 buyer under agreement who I met at one of my listings that was acquired through my strategies. So, and that's not the first one. I listed and sold a house at 1.39 at the beginning of the year in the first quarter that I met at a 2.5, which originally started as an expired and then was a buyer that I double-ended that and is now repeating with me. So these things grow roots if you understand that that's the vision for a business that works. But then that begs the question, who do you have to become, right? And what do you want out of this? So staying with the business vision first, that's how the business works. But what do you want? Now, I've used this conversation to say, a lot of you have heard from me, do not quit your day job. Obviously not my coaching clients who are already in this business, doing plenty well, looking to make their business better. But you as an individual agent, the answer is, what do you want to gross in your business? Meaning, what's the top line revenue you want? Don't worry about splits with the agency that you're at or with me. That's not the point. The point is first is like, for example, if you were going to go get a job part-time versus a business opportunity with me, then what I'd be saying to you is you're going to work 15 hours for $20 an hour at Starbucks, and you're going to have to put in at least 44 weeks out of 52. That's going to give you $16,500 a year pre-tax. Okay. Doesn't sound like a lot for all that adherence to behaving where and when they tell you how to, right? Whereas I'm saying you can be an independent contractor, largely working from home these days, sitting here on Zoom, learning, spending time on that business, and you would need one Cape Cod average sale of $1,071,000 at 2.5% to gross $25,000 for your business. And even if you took into account the splits, you'd be ahead of the Starbucks job. So that just makes it very realistic for people. But the problem being is that most of you will never set that North Star. You won't really think about the money in a logical way. Now, you might say, well, one deal at 25 grand minus the split, and taxes is not enough for me. Great. You have 52 weeks you can think about it. 44 you execute. You'll do many more than one deal if you execute a strategic plan. But once you even set that North Star goal, who are you? And so we talk about that in week 3. We say you have to become this strategic leader. So up in the entrepreneurial part, we have these visionary things, a vision for a business that works correctly, and a vision for who you are to lead yourself and anybody else that you will help grow your business. You have to become that vision too. Now, this is one of the hardest things for you to understand, like how you're going to get from here to there. For me, it's easy because I gave you some very specific homework in week 3 on how to bulletproof your mindset. Number 1 was a book by Maxwell Maltz called Psycho-Cybernetics, Cybernetics. Psycho-Cybernetics means mind steering systems. Incredible tactical advice on how to program your brain to get that North Star number. And again, super easy if you're using our tactical and strategy tools, right? So we talk about that melding of you learning how it's going to be you that actually makes this financial goal come true. And then last week, I started to think to myself, I needed to move some pieces around, because after you go through the business model and these other two, what's your financial goal and who you are, you come out of this entrepreneurial visionary thing into the managerial stage, where there's a lot of plans, strategic plans. So we have strategic business vision in the first 3 weeks. And then week 4 begins a cycle of talking about strategic marketing. And most people, even though they might have a sense that they think they know what marketing is, they don't really, because there aren't that many people that are really professionally trained in small business marketing, let alone marketing in general. So last week I decided that I would sit there and I would talk about content. And what we talked about was every month, and I just finished mine, every month we would make a market update of statistical data, average price, mean price, inventory levels, mortgage rate for the 30-year, just a basic batch of data that is once a month putting us in a rhythm to be strategically organized, because that's the business vision we have, to have this systems-based business that becomes predictable and over a long term, the word sustainable. So how do you start that? Well, you create a piece of content about the data. Where do you get the data? The data is what you pay for when you join the multiple listing service. It has data. All of those things are right in there hiding in plain sight. Now, in my case, I taught you how to turn it into a one-page market update. If you'd like to see that, you could go to thegriffin.co/blog. The latest post up there other than today, just scroll down, you're going to see two very clear one-page PDFs. And then as my market update gets edited, the video, we add a video where I have a script to that. So every month I create the most important cornerstone piece of content, the answer to how's the market. And then other content that matters to the consumer are buyer and seller tips. And we have that content created in advance. And tonight I'm going to go over that more in detail. And then the timely stuff, like, for example, the Fed made no move today. So I wrote a blog article on it. Last week, it was the Consumer Confidence Index that got announced, and it was in the tank. The week before, the tariffs. So it's just not rocket science to be on top of the basic content to show yourself to the world as a professional. It's not about getting your name out there. I got to get my name out there. What do you mean you have to get your name out there? You have to get the content that relates to your business you're trying to build. That's what you need to get out there. Now, of course, your face and your name are attached to getting it out there. So by default, you are getting your name out there, but you're attaching it to the proper content. And you have to know the difference between content creation and using social media to distribute it, and using websites to distribute it. You have to know the difference between those things. Otherwise, you're going to get sucked into all the nonsense out there that social media marketing somehow is going to build a business. It's not. It's not even close to being able to build you a predictable, sustainable business that is based on the acquisition of listings at or above the median. You see, I start to give you the repeated dialogue for this plan. And it should start to make common sense to you because it's cohesive week after week after week. It's cohesive in a strategic, visionary type of way, right? So tonight we land on, okay, you told us about creation of content. How does that make me unique? How can I use that core content to develop what is also known in marketing as a unique selling proposition? Okay. And that's what we're going to discuss, because a unique selling proposition answers the question, why should they do business with you above and beyond all other options, including doing nothing at all? Okay. So we're going to go through this tonight. This is a very easy concept. So I'm going to spend more time physically going through the buyer and the seller package, which becomes the manifestation or the physical production of the beginning of your unique selling proposition. I know that sounds like a tongue twister, but I'll first explain the content here tonight for coaching purposes. And then what I'll do is I will explain by showing and telling what this is and how I tactically apply it. So tonight you get the little bonus of seeing how I do what I do. And of course, if you're a Griffin agent or a Realty Classroom agent, this is what we expect you to be doing. Okay. All right. I am going to share a new tab, and you should be seeing something that says, why should they do business with you? And if you do not, you let me know. Okay. So getting into what I just talked about, the concept of unique selling proposition was first introduced in 1940 by advertising executive Rosser Reeves. Okay. Rosser Reeves is a gentleman that worked on Madison Avenue. If you've ever seen the Netflix series Mad Men, it's all about Madison Avenue and advertisers of the day. And it was a wild gunslinging business back then. And Rosser, worked at a company called Ted Bates and Company, which was a famous company, and they did a lot of famous advertising and marketing campaigns. But he really coins this term unique selling proposition. And he gets into what that really means. But a USP is the one thing that sets a product or a service, in our business, it's a service, apart from its competitors and makes it stand out in the marketplace. So the fine line on this is gimmicky. Okay, I'm going to use that word for a second. You have to be careful about becoming gimmicky. And I've been around this business and coaching for a long time. And I had a very good mentor who was a very good salesperson. But I think at certain points in time when this subject was being discussed, it was too gimmicky. Your home sold guaranteed, or we buy it for cash, is largely a bait and switch because it's very difficult to fulfill that promise. So when you're talking about a unique selling proposition, you're really trying to say, but also universally appealing to the people you want to do business with. Okay? Let that sink in for a second. If I am in a marketplace and I want to do sellers, let's go back to the business vision. If I want to do business with sellers and I want to stand out in a service business where everybody sounds the same, okay? And what I mean by sounds the same, and some are already competitively advantaged, meaning I have a very long resume of listing and selling properties in this neighborhood. So the veterans are going to use that. We are a huge company. We have 600 people. We have the best websites. Those are claims that are not unique selling propositions. Okay? Then there's nothing unique in that as far as the process for listing and selling that house. It is a personal claim or a company claim. That's all it is. In a resume, albeit a pretty good indicator that you know how to convince people to list with you, is not necessarily anything that tells you that person has a good system. In fact, I've seen some pretty gross things lately in Boston in particular, where I know I went in, it was a tough competition. We knew we were behind the 8 ball, but we went in to compete anyway. And the person that got it was one of these people with a resume and a brand. And I am telling you that this property should have been listed at right around $2 million. And it should have fetched easily in the 1.8 to $2 million range. Instead, it went for 1.6. Let that sink in. I am telling you that that was a gross misrepresentation of that property. And it was all about sort of that lottery of convincing somebody who, by the way, when I met with her, I thought she was pretty distraught. It was a probate. She wasn't really hearing me well enough. She wasn't really, I don't know whether she was scoffing at the math or what she was doing. And she made an extremely irrational, uneducated, based decision based on just resume. And just, when I say irrational, ignoring math is irrational, right? Ignoring strategy is irrational. But this can be a largely emotional business. And it cost her big time. Now, maybe she argues it doesn't matter. It's found money. It's my aunt who's passed away. I live on the West Coast. This is the East Coast. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to go with what appears to be, the sure thing. So that also shows you that even though you might have something really organized and really good, it's not going to land with everybody. It's just not. And you're going to have to be okay with that. You're going to have to understand it doesn't land with everybody. So it's not some foolproof, unique selling proposition that's so amazing that they just can't resist it in the face of any competition, because that's just not how people make decisions. Now, I'll get into another part of marketing when I get into the avatar, but tonight's about using the content to create a unique selling proposition package of information that will be used to introduce you professionally and differentiate you professionally. Okay. So now, according to Reeves, a strong USP should be unique, specific, meaningful, and memorable. And I think I'm going to prove to you tonight that the way that we do things here is all of those things to at least give us a very competitive advantage. Today, the concept of USP remains an important part of marketing, obviously, and branding strategies. And let's talk about marketing. versus advertising. Marketing is more of a holistic understanding of how a business presents itself. So if you were to understand that I'm teaching you a course on how to run a business, I would want you to understand that, albeit I'm talking about these packages of information, don't neglect the fact that I've spent enormous time on my website. I own the website company. My partner's in Belgium. I obsess over its presentation so that when somebody comes there, the presentation of the company is marketed professionally against the best that it can be. And it's a continuous evolution of that physical product so that we are marketed digitally in the best way possible. That's marketing. The quality of my business cards, the thickness of the material, the gold foil on the front of them, that's marketing. Signage, how that looks, what materials, what it says, is it easy to consume? Marketing. Packages that we buy and we put our information in, the choice consistent with brand, the ability to put that nice business card, marketing. So all of those choices are globally part of marketing, and they're like the support cast for what is truly going to be unique, because anybody can do that stuff, right? Anybody can do that. So yes, it might stand out if I have a little edge. Yes, my business card definitely stands out because people comment on it. Okay. So that's something I can say, geez, I think I took that stupid, simple concept just a little bit further than everybody else did. And people say, wow, what a nice business card. Okay. But it's not unique. I've seen others like it. And yes, it stands out, but it also, it doesn't really do anything to educate that consumer. Why me? And remember, that's what a unique selling proposition needs to do. So even though aesthetically some of my stuff might look, touch, and feel uniquely, it still doesn't present why they should do business with me. Because you're not going to do business with me because I have pretty brochures and I have a nice business card. That's just standard fare for the elevation of the standard. What matters more so is what we're going to do with the unique selling proposition to convince you. So companies seek out and promote their unique selling propositions as a way to differentiate themselves from competitors and capture the attention of consumers. And that's really the launch point for this conversation, right? That's where I want to launch into, physically going through this and have you understand how wildly important this is, okay? So let me stop this part of this and let me go back to the screen. Okay. And so what we're going to do here is I am going to show you, just make sure I'm being seen on both of these things. Yep. I'm going to show you these packages of information. So never far from me, so that when I'm doing an interview or I'm educating you, they're getting a little ratty here and torn from all the work I put them through. I always joke about this with Kathy. I say, what makes McDonald's unique, and again, I'll use McDonald's because Michael Gerber uses it. What makes them unique is not the quality of their burger and not the quality of their fries. It's how they get delivered that makes them unique. That somebody can pull in there and know that they're going to get a good value, horrible food if you ask me, but if you call it food, but they're going to get a very consistent, understandable result. That they can go in there and for very low money, they're going to go through a drive-through and in minutes, they're going to know what they can get. Okay. So using that concept, because Burger King down the street, Wendy's further down the street, it's all burgers and fries, right? It's just that each one has their little unique differentiation point, right? I mean, Wendy's made their burger square. Burger King charbroils theirs, right? So they try the best they can beyond the aesthetic to differentiate burgers and fries, which is about as common as it can get, right? So what we did was he said, okay, well, in this case, isn't it true that every agent does the same thing? Don't we all just kind of list and sell the house? Don't we all just kind of show them a few houses and sell them? Well, sure, if you want to dumb down what we do, which is this industry's full enough of that to the extent that most consumers look at realtors with disdain, right? So we want to be able to stand out and be different in that world where we are disdained by the public because we never do any of this strategic thinking. We never think about empowering the consumer. We always think take first. I need to take the business first. I need to get it. I need to get I. And it creates an orientation about me. Versus in the service business, what makes very logical sense, hopefully to all of your brains, it's about them. It's about the consumer. And so now you come back to some very basic marketing philosophy that says, okay, if I'm going to be unique and market myself, what other marketing ploys or basics should I adhere to? Well, one of the greatest basics that I learned really, and it's not new, but I learned it more so from the internet, was that in the early days of the internet, the savvy marketers were giving away their best what to do information for free. You could go on webinars that went on for hours, literally, with people just giving away information for free. But what I then understood, it always left you wanting to ask, but how do I do it? Okay, you're saying what to do. So for example, for an agent, run a strategic business. Okay, that's what to do. Well, how do I do it? So I learned that you could give away your best what to do information for free, and that would ask them how to do it. And then it would sell you a product. Okay, so how do you take that concept from an online world to an offline physical world like ours? How do you get a seller to behave in a similar way? It's much harder, by the way, but it's doable. So I went to Starbucks one day and I said, all right, from a marketing standpoint, what would make me at an extreme? Like what extreme? If I went away from the pack completely, I'm in this, all the sheeple doing everything the same. I want to go to the extreme and think about this. What if I just went out and did everything I do for a seller and didn't charge them? Okay. What would I do from start to finish? What do I do from start to finish to list and sell a house? And so I imagine myself doing it all and not charging a commission, like just being extraordinarily unique. This lunatic is doing this for free. Well, obviously that's not a business model to make you profitable, but it woke me up to think, okay, so stripping out of how I would do it, there's got to be a what to do in there. So if I were coaching you to be a for sale by owner, where I wasn't going to list and sell your house, what would I coach you on? So I sat down at Starbucks and I said, well, first thing is I would tell you the truth about the right order of things. It's not marketing. I know you want to hear, how are you going to market my property? That is the goofiest thing that anybody could ever ask, but they ask it because that's how they perceive this works, that we market their property as the primary thing. No, we're supposed to be good at pricing their property. So all of this conversation about comparables, yet nobody really spends time understanding how to differentiate, except appraisers who make a living doing this, doing pluses and minuses against three other things that sold recently, which is limited in its scope. But at least it's moving in the right direction to understand that there's a skill set to pricing. And we're trying to price apples versus oranges, so it's a challenge. But I'm thinking to myself, but the agent that spends the time learning how to price something right is the one that really starts to have more success. So why don't I just tell the consumer pricing it right matters? And here's some things that I have learned as an expert about pricing. Boom. Now, if you don't like the math that relates to pricing, and obviously pricing has become a massive subject, just ask Zillow. They're not even a company without an online algorithmic guess at value. Neither is Redfin. Neither is Trulia, Zillow, et cetera. Everybody that has Realtor.com has three algorithms. So pricing is paramount. So that's the thing to discuss first. Now, if you don't like certain parts of the range on pricing, then there are certain things you can do to recondition the property, all the way from blood, sweat, and tears reconditioning to complete kitchen renos, new roofs, this thing, that thing, right? So I'll educate them on that. If you want to be at the high end of the pricing range, you're going to have to consider reconditioning. Once that's all done, you want to put a little sizzle on the steak, you got to get rid of your personal crap, and you have to stage this thing. So even using your own furniture at the lowest end and just making sure everything's zen and you open up the flow, you can go that low end all the way to the high end, just like conditioning, where you can hire a pro. and they can bring furniture in and everything. But until you talk about those three things, you can't even intelligently talk about marketing, which now shows up in the conversation, right? Now you can talk about marketing because you've done the reconditioning that you can afford to do or want to do. You've done the staging that you can afford or want to do. And now somebody comes in and digitizes that moment in time at the best moment possible. And these days, some of the photographers are wizards. We have a really good one right now we love. Does like somehow just does the twilight pictures with whatever software he's. They're just stunning. Our clients love it. We do the floor plans. We do the walk and talk videos. So we digitize this product. Then we grab that digit and then we throw it into MLS and it syndicates, which is marketing. It syndicates to all the other realtors and all of the people that are thinking about buying a property, especially on the phone, laptop, iPad, etc. So that's syndication marketing. So preparation marketing, digitize it, syndication, shoot it through MLS everywhere, and then get off your butt and push it. Open houses, postcards, telemarketing. That's how you market a listing. Period. Period. There's nothing beyond that. That's how it really works. And then the next phase of that is the feedback that happens because the co-brokes call to show it or not. You do the open houses, the buyers come or not. Period. So now that's the feedback that says you don't have the right balance if you don't get an offer. You don't have the right balance between your price, your condition, staging. You're not balanced because we won't make an offer based on where you're pricing. So that feedback matters. It says go back to the drawing board, look at your pricing, take a fresh look at what's happening, right? And then make your adjustments. And that will get you finally to a spot where now we're starting to get some offers. We negotiate based on the very math we used, including a net sheet so you know what you're walking away with, put it under agreement, and we close with care. That is universal. It's evergreen. But nobody takes the time. Hear me say this now. The word unique. Nobody takes the time to write that out for a seller, put it on paper, into a booklet, whatever you want it to look like, and gives it away for free. Nobody. I've seen some semblance of it, but nobody took the time to sit down and write it out and said, this is my best advice on what to do with or without me. And all I'm telling you is what to consider and what to do. I'm not saying how I would do it yet because that's the upsell. Just like the online people, oh, you want me? Then you have to hire me. So I created that. I started to give it away and I was all excited. But it turns out that the consumer who would list their property with you or buy, that consumer doesn't want to be told what they need. They want to start with what they want because everybody's so dang addicted to content that they want these days that they actually want pictures and details of properties that's sold around theirs, even when they don't know they want it, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to layer on top of this even more. This is the meat. I'm going to throw in some sizzle on this with some steak sauce. I'm going to give you pictures and details of properties that sold around yours straight from MLS, just like I see as a realtor. And I know you're wondering how the market's going. So I'm going to take all the stats, organize them in one page. I'm going to throw on some more sauce. Okay. So I got 2 layers of sauce on this thing that you need. I'm going to give it to you. This is all of the information that's hyper relevant to you, to the local marketplace, and to strategy. And I'm going to give it to you. So not only did I write out everything that they have to consider to sell and buy in 6 steps, I productized it. I made it a physical thing, not a do all, it sounds expensive, all the brain says, right? All the goofy stuff the brain says. No, they're physical human beings. And I made it into a physical package of information that I could hand to a physical person as a gift. Now comes in one of the most powerful psychological laws used as a marketing tool. So the concept of giving away the best what to do information for free, and by the way, that dates way back to the Ted Bates days, the 1940s. You send us a little like self-addressed envelope and shipping and handling check, and we'll send you back a free sample. There's nothing different here, right? It's the freemium, as you call it. In our case, you can't really charge for it. So you might as well just do it and give it away. So all this nonsense about marketing, well, I'm just going to send 3,000 postcards out and hope something happens. What? I'm going to make a package of information, identify somebody who's thinking about selling, and give it to them to empower them. And I'm going to let the law of reciprocity have them be drawn into me. Because like the thing says, oh, wait, there's more free. So not only did I give you a couple things that you want, I gave you a thing you needed, but if you really have a reason why you want to sell and you have a high motivation to do so pretty dang soon, I will actually bring myself to your house. And with this same information, you're going to get some of my insights. I'm going to take a look at that 7-step plan, and I'm going to tell you what to do with conditioning, what not to do. And you're going to tell me what you can afford and want to do, and we're going to come up with a plan. Then I'm going to customize the staging, get rid of these things, do this, and make sure this looks the part. And then I'm going to go back up to pricing based on what I think you'll do. And I'm going to analyze everything that's sold around you. I'm going to tell you where I think you might end up. And I'm even going to show you all the costs of a sale. My commission, buyer's commission, even if I get the buyer, all of these other things, tax and deed stamps, etc. Here's what you would walk away with. So you just got all the information plus 2 levels of my insight on what I would do if I were you to prepare to get top dollar. But you still need somebody. But since I have now stacked the deck with 3 pieces of information, 2 interpretive pieces of information, 1 guidance, 1 actual digital, analysis in NetSheet, where do I stand in the category of being unique versus all other options, including you not wanting to sell again because you lost hope that it could get done? Let that sink in. It is staggeringly unique. It's not that the information that's in the product is unique. It's not that my advice is unique. It's not that somebody couldn't learn to do the math like I do that's so wildly unique. Quite frankly, it's division and subtraction. That's all it is. So the fact that I think through this strategically and I get ready to go, this is before I ever teach you in this course anything about how to approach somebody and their context. I am saying you are prepared to give away to sellers, to buyers, your best what to do information for absolutely nothing, with the hopes that this triggers to the right person only. It's not always a match. This is message. This is message that I'm unique and different and professional, but I have to match it to a segment of the market who appreciates it because 1, they have context to sell or buy. 2, they're not committed to an agent. And 3, they're willing to consider this, right? They're willing to look at this from the standpoint of saying, wow, I would like to be academically oriented towards doing this right. Sure. So all those circumstances have to exist for this to land. You can't just get excited that it's here. You have to be what's called judicious, judgmental about who this goes to so that it lands, so that you have a chance to do nothing more than turn a lead contact. So contact is name, email address, telephone number, mailing address. That's a fully formed raw material called a contact. Lead means you don't know why they want to sell, and you don't know if their motivation is high enough on a scale of 1 to 10 to do it in the next 12 months. If you find out those things and you make this offer to find out those things, you're going to find out quickly yeses and nos. And the yeses have a why, have a high motivation inside the next 12 months, want your package. They become your first soft prospect. I say soft because there's still a lot of follow-up that has to happen where you're updating the information to continuously make sure that they're in this, right? And that turns out to be the beginning of a unique selling process. A unique selling process. Not just a proposition, but a process. I proposition you by saying, this is the way you should do it, and this is what I would be following. But if you decide to work with me, It's just the beginning, and it's the framework for within which I will stay disciplined when I'm helping you sell or buy. So on the sell side, and let's show this, right? On the sell side, I'm going to show you the information without the insightful second pieces. So to the seller, the idea is, and I tell everybody that I coach, and if you're in here as a guest, you have to go make one of these for yourself, okay? This is basic data that is available through your MLS and maybe even just generally online that answers the question, how's the market, with very meaningful specifics, okay? Average price, median price. By the way, I put those in there for your business model. You need to know what the median price is or the middle price in the area within which you want to do business. You should know what the average is because you'd rather shoot for selling properties at the average. And then obviously, for sake of understanding the market, how much is it price per square foot? How many months of inventory are there? And what does that mean? How many days does it take to sell a property? What is the average 30-year rate, right? What is it? And how many active listings are there? How many pending listings are there? How many sold? And how does that relate to a previous period? What are the top 10 sales? Because that's kind of sexy and fun. So we just take data and we make it contextually interesting so that it's consumable for you to stay professional, but to educate them on how's the market with meaningful specifics. Whereas your competitors are going around, oh, it's a buyer's market. Oh, it's seller's market. What does that even mean? Does that mean if somebody wants to sell their property, I walk in, oh, it's a buyer's market. How's that seller going to think about listing with me? They're not. Next. I might say the realism is, hey, listen, consumer confidence is in the tank right now, but I think we're ready for a little bounce here. We get any positive news on tariffs anytime soon, which we might get with Scott Bessent when he goes to negotiate with the Chinese next week in Switzerland. I think we'll have a bounce up here. So the timing could be actually pretty good. But you're going to have to look at this 7-step plan with me and be prepared so that we're bulletproof. And that includes pricing it right. So as part of that whole thing, you see these sales here, you're going to have to know what that means for you. And then you're going to have to know what it means what you're going to walk away with, right? So it always just becomes a conversation based on the same pieces of, information every single time. Now, once this information is offered without me being a pest to try to take from them, I do want to know why. I want to know how motivated. Why? Because if there's a higher level of motivation, I will actually take this information and I will do some more work for free. I will go in there, look at those solds, and for all the Griffins, you have this 17-minute video, TRC or 17-minute video on how to do division from the sold prices that were in that package against their assessed values to show ratios. The cleanest properties will sell at the highest ratios, the ugliest, the lowest. And so when you walk in with an assessed value based off of the assessed value of the person you're going to help sell it, you'll instantly know their house is a doghouse. So it's probably going to sell around more of 100% of value, assessed value. And if it's not, could be up as 142 or higher. So it's just math. It's stupid simple. Got 7 pieces on here for a $4 million property. Then you take a guesstimate of where it might sell, and you always do these conservatively, and you stick the real data in somebody's face. You stop worrying about, oh my gosh, my fee looks so high. Yeah, that's the fee. That's what it is on the sell side. That's what it is on the buy side. There's the taxes because you owe those in arrears. Inspections. I know it's a little blurry here, so I apologize. Closing fees, attorney closing fee, tax and deed stamps. And by the way, there's the total cost of what you walk away with. And what you'll find is a phenomenon that's stunning. People actually appreciate the data and they go straight to the bottom line. But if you don't add all this value, there's nothing unique about this, business. You don't add all this value to empower them. What do? What's your fee? How much you charge? Right? That's what they do. They go straight to your fee and they attack you on your value because you didn't demonstrate any value. You didn't give any information for free. You didn't do any analysis for free. You did not empower them. You just hoped that your plan would be, but they like me and I have rapport and they're just going to do business because Sotheby's is a big brand or my resume is 20 years long. No, that's not how it's going to work 90% of the time. 10% you get lucky, it works that way. You have to understand that information, we live in the information age. If you organize it for what they want and what they need, and you put it in order and you productize it, make it physical, and you offer it to the right person and they accept it, it's the beginning of a unique selling process that you will take them through. Because what's unique about it, it's organized, it's informative, and you're following it systematically. So nobody's winging it. So you're inside the system with them. So every time that we just had a 45-day meeting with one of my clients at 2.75 because they've been traveling. We couldn't sit them for the 30. And we went through all the data again. And we talked about what the challenges were, right? Because we're not under agreement yet. So we're hoping that Memorial Day brings a lot of, people to the outer part of the Cape. And if it doesn't, we're going to have another come to Jesus meeting based on the system. Okay. All right, voila, that's enough of unique selling proposition packages, how they get developed, why it's important for you to do that. So let's open it up for Q&A. And remember, you can ask me anything on this call. I know it's a lot, and yeah, you need to think through that, okay? So questions for me? Hey, man. Yes. Uh, 100% door knock them if you're willing to do that. 100%. But what I was pulling up for you to show you, you need to have the FSBO cover letter. Okay. Chris Egan was doing one of these. Let me show this to you. So you have access to this. I can't post it in the chat because, well, I can post it to you privately. So you have access to, tell me when you can see this. Bear with me. I got to show my screen. Are you seeing my screen? No? Matt, you see my screen? No? Okay. So, yeah, you good? Okay. So I just had to get there. So this is the master cover letter list for Griffin agents like you. Okay. So there's your FSBO cover letter. That cover letter would be the cover letter. Then you would find what is he asking for it, go a little above, go a little bit below with solds, get him 5 or 6 of them. Okay. And put the latest Seattle market update in there too. So cover letter. Okay. Okay. Broken down, but you want it to look good. Is it in that format? Okay. Because that's marketing. Like I said, your professional, simple presentation. Good. So cover letter, pictures and details of properties that sold around his recently, straight from MLS with the pictures, details, right? The market update and a copy of the seller plan. Okay. So now that cover letter goes in there. However, what you want to do is not wing it when you go to the scripting. So there's also scripting for that. So you have the FSBO script. Okay. So, hey, Danny, I'm Matt from Cantu Group at the Griffin, and I'm stopping by because I saw your beautiful house online. I noticed you're trying to sell it yourself. So I want to give you some information to help you sell it. May I give this to you? So all you're doing is taking the script over the phone and adapting it slightly for the door knock, right? And then what you do is, hey, just so you know, let me see this. So just so you know what I put in here, I put these 3 things, right? And you just tell them what's in there. And so that's going to ingratiate you to possibly just see the place too. Hey, while I'm here, do you mind showing it to me? Right? So now, you might be able to give him tips on what to do and what not to do right there and tell him, hey, listen, now that I've seen it a little bit, I'm going to go back to my office. The things I gave you that sold, I'll give you a little analysis and I'll show you also how to think about this. Right? Now, this is again, if he's accepting of all this stuff, right? And where are you going? Do you need any help finding the next house? Because you might be able to pick them up as a buyer. And, well, why would you give this all to me? Well, because I cover the area and it's just a gift. It's what we do. It's our methodology. But in the case that you don't sell it and you're thinking about interviewing real estate agents, I'd love to compete for the job. But in the meantime, let me go further. Let me go do an analysis for you. I'll come back. I'll give you some tips on what to do, what not to do to get the high end of this. And I could do a net sheet for you, right? So just go through the process. But I would absolutely 100% door knock him. Yeah, it is the fastest path to a conversation. It's just like open houses. The fastest path to talking people, sit in an open house, right? So we always, if we're willing to do the methodology of the fastest path, take that. If not, don't. Cool? Good. Okay, buddy. All right, what else? Any other questions tonight? Hi, Jack. Uh, yep, for the tactical campaign. Did I email it to you or what did we do last time? Okay. Something, hold on. Something's going funky with this. Okay, hang on one second. I'm talking and chewing gum at the time. Just stay there. I'm going to fulfill your request in a second if I can get chat to work, which it doesn't look like I can. Hang on. Let me try another methodology here. I can't get this to work. Something's funky here. Otherwise, I would send it to you now. Yep, let's do that. Okay, done. Yeah? Okay. Yep. Okay. No, well, of course. I mean, but again, you're supposed to do five, attempts. And you're supposed to and not or. So, and means drive by them, try to door knock them, right? Yeah. Calls the two proactive things are, and. But could you do a couple in a week? Sure. I'm just saying bare minimum 44 times because remember what happens at the end of the week now. If you don't get them by Saturday, what are you supposed to do? Correct. Correct. That's it. Yeah, yeah, it's not yeah, you'd see that over the course of a year, intentionally trying to get this to people with 2 proactive attempts, calling or door knocking 5 days a week, and then mailing, and then rinse and repeating, you'd see it would yield results. But if you wanna double it every week, right, go for it. If you wanna call a whole list every week, go for it. But what my fear is, how about this? Call into a big list, but pick one that you're gonna mail after you door knock it. You could have a list. How about you take a list of 30 of them, call them all week long, okay? But pick your favorite one, drive by it 2, and at the end of the week, mail it, okay? That work? You're welcome. All right. Any more questions? Final call. Okay. Have a good night, and we will see the rest of you when we see the rest of you, whatever call it might be, okay? You're welcome. Have a good night.